I'd like to call the Tuesday, January 7th, 2019 Duval City Council meeting to order. Would you please rise for the flag salute led by Councilmember Matthew Iyer.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Councilmember Rudnicki.
Here.
Councilmember Iyer.
Here.
Councilmember McHenry.
Here.
Councilmember Remington.
Here.
Councilmember Hogue. Here. Councilmember Nafland.
Here.
Please let the record show that Councilmember Nafland is attending via speakerphone. Councilmember Langle.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Under additions or corrections to the agenda, please add under consent payroll for December 20th, 2019 in the amount of $100,237.02. Payroll for January 3rd, 2020 in the amount of $279,572.24. And claims for December 31st, 2019 in the amount of $249,598.58. Are there any council members that would like to speak this evening? Seeing none, any other changes to the agenda? Mayor Pro Tem Remington.
Mayor, we're just requesting that we, under unfinished business, move item 3 to the first item this evening, followed by item 1
Okay. All right, any objections? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Do we have a motion to approve this evening's consent agenda?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Do we have any comments from the audience this evening? And please provide your name and address.
Okay. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Hill, Duval Foundation for the Arts, 11514 Westlake Joy Drive Northeast. Hope everybody had a good holiday. We appreciate the intent of this grant permit extension. We really appreciate it very, very much. With the holiday, we haven't had a chance with this most recent version to look it over and talk about it as a board. So we would like the opportunity to do that, but we certainly, just to make sure it's going to work, we appreciate the intent. We just want to make sure that there isn't anything that could be problematic. And we certainly don't object in any way to coming and talking with all of you whenever you want us to. But we also want to talk a little bit about it with our, with the people that we're working on the project with. So that's all I have. Thank you very much for trying to help us.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak this evening? Please approach and provide your name and address.
Mayor Ockender and Council, my name is Rick Bowman. I live on 27127 Northeast Stewart Street in Duval. I just want to say two things tonight. One, it was great to see you guys pass the audit really well. That was very exciting. Once a year, our family, we review our own budget. We look at what's going on, we look at expenses, we look at costs, and we readjust our budget based upon income and outgoing stuff. And sometimes we have big projects, little projects. Some we have to choose not to do. So I just really appreciate the amount of effort over the last couple of meetings you guys have given to the financial and fiscal responsibility of the city. The second thing is I just want to put a thought on the property down there you're doing the big deck for. Would you consider doing stairs, 2 stairs instead of a giant deck? Just something to think about. And that's it. I'm done.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to scheduled items. First up is my report. It's been a busy, basically first week back and the first couple days back in the office. Prior to break, the Sound Cities Board met. We'll have executive leadership coming up soon at our retreat at the end of the month. One new item that I believe I forgot to mention at the last meeting is that they have now started a past president's leadership team to help the SCA staff and as the boards move forward, be consistent and retain institutional knowledge. And that's going to be, I think, a very good resource for everyone on the board. So I'm really excited that that's moving forward and that those that have turned off the board will still be able to be involved at a pretty in-depth level. This morning, we had the Snoqualmie Valley Mayors meeting with the mayors of North Bend, Snoqualmie, and Carnation. Representative Bill Ramos, Representative Lisa Callan, and Senator Mark Mullet were there. We were discussing legislative issues, and there's one that Bill Ramos is introducing that is likely not to pass this year, but it's certainly something to track and could have a pretty significant impact on the city of Duval if we chose to take advantage of any of the things that are in the bill if it passes next year. So in short, I'm pretty excited about this because what it doesn't do is it doesn't create new taxes or new local options, but it expands them. And as local governments, in all the conversations I have regionally, one of our biggest challenges is that there's lots of tools, but the tools don't fit every jurisdiction. And we're working really hard with the legislature to understand that we want as many tools as we can get because based on our constituency, they're going to prefer a different tool. And it's really important to make sure that we get to a point of fiscal resiliency, make sure that as we continue to see state revenues and federal revenues drop off, that we have other avenues to make up the gaps so that we can continue to maintain the services our community demands. So in this, just a brief on it, I'll forward the bill to council. It's basically titled the Local Options Transportation Funding Bill. And then summary is that it would allow or increase cities and counties to fund their transportation needs through 3 methods. 1, a local gas tax up to 5 cents, with 2.5 cents being council vote, second half by the vote of the people. Local sales tax, or TBD, increased from 0.2 to 0.4% with a council vote. So our TBD that just passed, that would double, allow us to be able to double our TBD funding if we saw it necessary. And then a local utility tax up to 2%, which would be a council vote. The point, the questions that come up is if a city passes this, does the county get to pass it too? And it doesn't matter who passes it, it's a tax in that jurisdiction. So it'll be interesting to see how the conversation with that goes, especially as jurisdictions in the state are struggling to fill the gap, potentially a huge gap left by the approval of 976. We're really behind in transportation, and so hopefully this can provide jurisdictions that need it and have the opportunity a leg up. So I am personally a big supporter of providing options, just so that jurisdictions can have the decision on what works for them and have the tools they need to do their jobs. We also had the North End Mayor's meeting today at Issaquah. Mayor Lou Hawley hosted. We had staffers from Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal's office, as well as Congresswoman Delvaney's office. There was a lot of updates, a lot of discussion about what our cities are doing this year, how our councils have changed, because many councils have changed significantly. For example, the city of Redmond has, for the first time ever, a majority of female council members, and the youngest, the current mayor is now the second most tenured council person and also the second oldest person on our council. So they've really had a significant diversified in their council, and they're really excited about that. We also talked a little bit about legislative session and federal issues, particularly 5G and broadband. Congresswoman Delvaney's staffer brought up what they're working on there, and we had a lively discussion about the need for more local control for 5G and broadband, because we have absolutely no local control over broadband, and we don't even get to tell cell carriers to mask their 5G equipment. And so that's a big concern for everyone, but with the current FCC makeup, it's not likely to change anytime soon, unfortunately. Usually when those things are done, there is ship that sailed and we don't get that opportunity back. But I also did express with the most recent changes from the FCC that it's going to impact us financially, and that, really without regulated internet as a utility, as cable goes away, people move to wireless devices, it provides a significant impact to jurisdictions. We also talked about gaps within jurisdictions. It's not just the city of Duval that has issues within their city with service, and trying to get more focus on finding ways to fill the gaps and fill the inconsistencies in jurisdictions rather rather than just getting internet from point A to point B. So it was a really good conversation, definitely worth the time. For folks that have been appointed to Sound City's boards and committees, the orientation is next Wednesday from 6 to 8 at SeaTac City Hall. If anyone would like to carpool, let me know. They say it's asked to attend, but it really is more mandatory. So if anyone would like to carpool, let me know. The Puget Sound Regional Council will also be doing newly elected officials training towards the end of the month. I cannot remember the date offhand. Finally, actually not finally, we also have the Sound Cities, or SVGA meeting coming up. I believe it's on the 22nd of January, and it will be in Carnation. So we should have received the agenda for that today, and it would be really helpful if we have a good representation at that meeting. Finally, the Association of Washington Cities Conference is coming up at the end of January. I'm already registered. It's a great opportunity to go and talk to our legislators, connect with other elected officials from across the state. It's amazing how much you find you're in the same boat with when you go and talk to other people, and issues don't seem as bad when you know that other folks are going through them. So, it really is important to our legislators that we show up. So if you would like to attend, please let Jody know so that we can get that on the calendar and get you registered. And I think that is about it for right now. So with that, we did not have any council members that wanted to speak, so we'll move on to council committee reports. Sure.
I got the legislative information out of the governor's office, and there were two things that I'm hoping with all the other things we're tracking, you can keep an eye out for as well. In the governor's supplemental budget, I noted that there was, I think it was a $4.4 million reduction in funding for the Complete Streets program, and I didn't know how that might be impacting other grant sources that we have tried to get, that type of thing. So I noticed that one. And the other thing I noticed that has more of a longer-term budget implications for us was that there was a proposal to increase the adjusting rate under PERS 1, and I don't know whether we have PERS 1 people here anymore, but the more important thing was the next paragraph, which said that it was expected that they were going to come back in with a request for an adjustment from the employer side, meaning us, for all of PERS. So there was some language there, and I thought, yeah, that's something we really need to know about on the finance committee side. So I thought I'd ask about that, and maybe you could keep track of it.
Well, we don't
know yet.
We don't have any staff to keep track of the thousands of bills that come forth this year. So if you could send me that information, I can start having staff track certain key pieces. That's more financial, so we can certainly look to the finance department to assist with that.
Yeah, it's just a little blurb of that thing that came, I think we all got it. It was just a release that this is the governor's supplemental key thing, so it's in our email.
Yeah, I didn't get it. So, okay, I will look it up. All right, moving on, we did not have any council members that wanted to speak. Do we have any council committee reports this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to administration update.
Good evening, Mayor, council members of our community. Happy New Year. I was very thankful to have a good deal of December off, so it's good to start off in a new year. So it is a pretty brief update. We'll do a larger, more expanded update at the next council meeting. So just a couple of things. Just a quick finance update. The first Finance Administration meeting will be held on January 15th. An email will be forthcoming. Probably my guess is no later than Thursday, along with an agenda. also on the accountant position. This position is going through evaluation, and we have paused the hiring process. And so we'll update you on that, but I want to just give a quick update on that. A small public works update. Obviously, we have weather, and it's been raining, and it's going to likely turn to snow, but 124th is closed. We'll continue to update our social media and Twitter and staff to make sure we can get in and out of the community and about when we think 124th will open up. And hopefully by Friday, we'll get a better idea of what the next round of weather is going to be. And what I mean by that is snow and cold for potentially a week with maybe some accumulation. So stay tuned for that. I did want to let you know that we have a bid going out for biosolids, so there will be a contract forthcoming to City Council. Biosolids is what comes through the sewer treatment plant. They get picked up and they go away. I also want to let you know that we have a second final plat for Ridge at Big Rock. That is also forthcoming. We're completing our inspections, and so that's going to land on our desk pretty soon as well. A couple of admin updates. December was one of the busiest months for the building and planning department. We received 99 single-family attached unit permits, and actually it was more than that. That was just from one project. That doesn't mean what was issued, it's just what's come in, and that will go forward with it, with review. The good news is our plans review examiner started in December and full-time in January. It will take several months for us to get through those because we have one person that reviews them, but we'll get there. We also have active permit review in for the Ridge at Big Rock, and so we've received several permits from there as well. We are also working on the City Attorney Services RFP. It's drafted. It's in about its second or third revision. We're going to get that completed, and we'll request that WCI review that. We're also looking at doing a short-term attorney services contract, and that'll be forthcoming to City Council at the next meeting for review and approval. Are there any questions?
Seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you, Ms. Holness. We do not have any presentations, public hearings, or new business this evening, so we'll move directly to unfinished business. And the first item is number 3, Agenda Bill 20-04, adopt ordinance amending Chapter 4.08 of the Municipal Code, providing for severability and establishing an effective date for discussion and/or decision.
I think I'll just start out by making a comment. This was an item that we had originally looked at December on the 10th. Council had looked at changing some language for this code and getting it updated. There was additional discussion on December 17th with 2 different revisions during that meeting. And then today we have a additional, I'd like to pass these out so you can take a look. Today's edition was on the last page. Thank you. So this item, I'd like to read this just so that for the benefit of our citizens and folks that might be listening at home as well who don't have this copy. So the amended code is followed, and I'll highlight as I read this the most recent changes, and it reads, all requests to change a position title or rewrite a position's job description shall be made in writing by the respective department head to the Chief Administrative Officer. The Chief Administrative Officer shall, it had read before will, it now reads shall, provide the City Council with prompt written notice of any such change. All requests to reclassify a position from one pay range to another shall be made in writing by the respective department head to the Chief Administrative Officer for approval. And this is a new change today, or disapproval by the City Council. We also added a definition for reclassification, which reads, Reclassification is defined as the movement of any employee to a different pay scale not listed and funded in the budget or the mid-buy. In addition, it reads reclassification of an existing position shall, it used to read will, but now reads shall only be made under the following circumstances. And I don't believe any of these circumstances are changed. There's 4 of them, but I'll read those this evening. Item 1, addition or deletion of duties and responsibilities. Item 2, consolidation, reorganization, or reassignment of the position. Item 3, growth of a position by the gradual addition or expansion of duties and responsibilities. Or item 4, changes in the minimum qualifications for the position. So that's what's being worked on this evening for discussion or for a decision. This originally came through our finance administration. We have all 3 members here, including Councilmember Naplin on the speakerphone. And I'd like to have members of the committee talk about this and give us just a little bit more background, maybe some of the changes as well.
Well, basically, I think it's really important to remember that our existing code, I'm sure, served the city well in the late 1980s, early 1990s when it was established. But as I've said before, there was 2,700 people in Duval at that time, and we not only have more than 7,800 now, but we are on the edge of having over 10,000. That's just with a simple computation of 600 units easily in our pipeline and roughly 3.6 or something like that people per unit. So this code, as well as other codes that finance will be looking at, is proposed to change because the way the code read in the past is no longer serving our need for long-term financial planning. And that's why we have put this forward. And it's designed to establish a framework, and it's designed to respond to a request by Councilmember Iyer to try to keep these changes as simple as possible. And we know there will be the need to do more work in this area, particularly since we know there will be some new personnel policies and some other things happening in the next year. So, but this is a place to start, and it's necessary, and I'll leave it at that.
Any other comments from committee members? This has had some concerns with it that I know the mayor has voiced. Mayor, I don't know if you want to speak on it as well.
I would like to speak last.
Okay. Are there other council members? Councilmember McHenry?
I just wanted to check because we had legal here at the last meeting. Was anything, and sorry if I missed it, was anything changed since there was a little bit of tweaking after that? But I just want to make sure whatever is in this paper has all been looked at by Hillary or whoever would be looking at that.
Yes, Councilmember Rowe.
Yes, Hillary did go over this already, and the changes are in red. As you'll see, we added shall instead of will. We added approval or disapproval, and then a definition of reclassification. The only thing that she did give a suggestion on that didn't get in this was she thought we should be more clear what mid-buy means, which would be something closer to mid-biennium budgeting process is what she recommended, changing that sentence a little bit, but she's definitely reviewed this and felt comfortable with the way it was written.
Councilmember Brunicki.
So I did miss the initial meeting where this was discussed, but I did go back and review the tape. And I think this is more of a philosophical comment in that, when I worked on tree protection, we spent a lot of time reviewing details and we're changing code and we're updating. And what I'd like to see, what was so difficult for me in this process was how we went about the process, because when you're talking about employees and you're talking about reclassification, I think it's really important that we give it that much process to the details of how we organize it. I had to look through all of this and try to figure out where were we in the amendments, what was changing, because there were so many. And I think for me as a council member, and when I look through this and where we went with it, I get a little concerned for myself personally because I don't want the appearance that I am making a decision here, and it's an awkward position when I'm trying to give more power to council, and that's kind of how this process felt like. That was kind of the intention, and it doesn't look good to me, and I want that to be clear that if we're really focused on updating policy and it's for the budget, that's great. And I do agree that the code does have to change, but I think going forward, especially something so important as employees, reclassification, pay scale, all of that, I would like to see us discuss it in a manner that we attend to those details and that we give it way more attention and time to work through it in the future. So that's just my comment.
Other questions or comments from council members? Councilmember Ryder.
Appreciate all the hard work on this changes. I think the changes to what council has discussed is set out as a goal, and I'm ready to vote on this.
I'd like to make just a brief comment. In my own experience, 40 years in the fire service, I always try to make decisions as close as we can to where the work is being done. And in many cases, I think in promotions and things where things are pretty routine, it's nice to have those done, through the directors and through the mayor, in our case, city administrator. But I also understand the concern council's raised about those decisions, especially when there's additional pay that can impact the budget. Even if you have money in that year's budget, those budget impacts go on to future years. And what I've heard from council members is that there's a real concern that we try to make sure we have a stable budget as well. Part of that is to help protect employees so we don't get out of whack with our budget. It is a challenge, I think, as Councilmember Burnicki said. It's tougher to manage a city when everything needs to go through council. And to me, that's always been where this is a challenge. But I understand the concerns with it and trying to bring some stability to the budget as well. So I don't have any clear direction in my own mind even. Like I say, I think this needed update regardless. I think it was clear, even the mayor commented that some of these particular codes need to be updated. But how we go about that has, just a real issue, make sure we had the discussions and we're doing it for the correct reasons. So that's all I had. Mayor, you wanted to speak as well?
Yep. So first off, I'll start out by having been a council member for 8 years and working for state legislators and county elected officials and in departments. I have a deep respect for the separations of powers and the roles and responsibilities of individual branches of government, as well as the legislative body's ability to make changes to most any law that they choose. That said, I have not only concerns with the procedural and impact to employees with this ordinance that I've raised in previous meetings, but I have real concerns, and I've heard these concerns from the public as well, that council procedures were not followed regarding this ordinance. Council procedures require before legal staff is to go and draft an ordinance that you have a majority of for. The other side of it is we have a no surprise rule. Council's not following their rules. It was a surprise to administration the night of a council meeting that this was coming about. which is not fair to the public, to staff, or to other elected officials. The committee at our last meeting talked about sending having meetings by serial email regarding these and other issues. And I have serious concerns about that for the transparency's sake of the city. One of the big reasons that this city went to a committee, the whole process, was because of these exact issues and the right people not being involved. Even more concerning to me was the fact that a member of the committee shared that they shared the emails with another council member after the meeting, which is not good practice in the least. Additionally, there has not been an actual public process on this. It's been discussion amongst council, and that's it. Amendments that were suggested by our city's employment attorney were ignored by the body. It was also requested that council hold a public hearing on the ordinance so that we could hear from the public on this issue. I've talked to many of the people in the community that did not want to come and talk to council about this issue, but were very upset that council was trying to make this change. So, in addition, I think that one of the other problems here is this ordinance literally changes the duties of a separately elected official without public involvement. I was duly elected by the citizens, and every mayor in the past has been duly elected by the citizens of this community, the voters of this community, and they deserve a say. And as I talked to people in the community, they were very upset that as we make decisions that are within the budget, within my authority, that council is wanting to change that at this time, especially with not going through the proper, a more robust process. Another issue that strikes me very strongly is that this council has been sitting on a council ethics policy for 3 years, and it is still not complete. Yet, the council is choosing to focus on this. And as I've identified, there are some real concerns with following processes and procedures in this whole process. This will cost the city money. It's cost thousands and thousands of dollars in legal fees already for drafting this ordinance. That probably would negate any savings that we've made from internal promotions this year. I don't have those numbers, but it definitely impacts and negates those savings. In my opinion, this should have been done as part of a collaborative process in the process of updating our code and not piecemeal, and I believe that there will be unintended consequences. This makes staffing decisions behind director hires more political, and I can tell you firsthand from working in a situation where that's the case, it is devastating to staff morale, and it definitely impacts our employees, and this just discussion has impacted multiple employees in a very negative way. So, in addition, it really does make, facilitate aspects of an unhealthy work environment for our staff. We are a strong mayor city. Other council members in previous meetings have talked about how other cities do it. They were not strong mayor cities all but one. The mayors, I have not received responses from everyone I reached out to, but every single mayor that I reach out to, the council is not involved in reclassifications that don't impact the current budget. And so that is a big concern because that brings, as we work, one of my long-term goals is to put policies in place that make decisions less political and keep our employees out of the political process, and this just brings them into it. So council can do as they wish, but I felt very strongly that I needed to share these concerns with the council and with the public. And I do have people that have talked to me about this in the audience. You are allowed to do what you want, but on the other hand, I also provided compromises, provided suggestions. I've been asked to compromise, I did, I asked suggestions, and this is still moving forward without a proper public process. So with that, I will entertain a motion.
Before we make a motion, can I ask a quick clarifying question? Are we making a motion on version, if you look at your little errata sheet, are we making a motion on version 3, which was what was discussed at the meeting on the 17th? Or are we making a motion on version 4 with the additional suggested edits from FAC? I want to make sure everybody understands what we're actually voting on.
So I think we would need a motion on the latest version. And if
Both
that's-
versions were presented, so I think we can make a motion on the ordinance in general, but I want to make sure that everybody here understands which one we're actually doing. And if it is version 4, I'd like your wording again on the mid-by, what Hillary suggested, so I can make sure that that is in the final version that I document, especially since this is a code change. I want to make sure it reads right.
So I'd like to move that we pass ordinance. I don't know if I have the right one in front of me.
You can still use the same title, so adopt ordinance amending chapter,
Okay.
yeah, you can still do that.
08.01C, and I'd like it to be version 4, which is the last page.
Okay, and can you give me the
So
correct
it's
wording?
just, instead of mid-by on that red section, it would say mid-biennial budgeting process.
Biennial budgeting process. Okay, so now that there's a motion, there can be a second, and if you guys want to amend from there, then that's what we will do. Thank you.
Second.
Any amendments? Any further discussion? Councilmember Hope.
I just would like to add that being on the Finance Committee, it's really come to our attention that our salaries and benefits have gone up substantially from 2017 to 2018. They went up $300,000. 2019 stayed at that same level. And it's all, I mean, maybe Jennifer can pipe in about her thoughts on this, but I truly believe that it's because of a lot of these reclassifications. It's just done this creep of salaries. It's very concerning. So I just want to make that said, and I think it's very important that we do this.
I will add one point of clarification. Our department directors have not done reclassifications, they've done promotions within their departments after employees have tested or applied for internal promotions, and there is definitely a difference between promotions and reclassifications. Those are the changes that have been made, and yes, in fact, salaries have gone up, as we've discussed multiple times. We've had some employees that were well below where they should have been for their tenure and their experience level, correcting mistakes of the past, and making sure that we have the right people at the table to do the work. If we do not do internal promotions and succession plan, we will spend more money on the loss of employees and continual replacement than we do in supporting our employees from the bottom up to ensure their opportunity to grow. And so that is one of the items Dana and I will be discussing, is looking at what those items look like when we have vacancies. And when we do have vacancies or not the right people at the table with the right skill sets, there is in fact a detrimental effect to the city, and the fact that the work that needs to get done cannot get done. And that puts us in a position, for example, our Public Works Department right now has people doing overtime every weekend to replace all of the failing water meters. We have to do that because failing water meters are costing the city money as people are not being charged for the water they're using. And so it goes much deeper than that and more into, you can't just look at numbers on a paper, you've got to look at the bigger picture, which is something I see every day. And I just want to make that clear that it's not just about dollars. I have a responsibility to think about my people as well as the operation of the city and what I was asked to do by the citizens. I do understand and share concerns about our budget, and in fact, that's one of the reasons I'm here today, is to get us to a point of budget sustainability. But we cannot do the work without the proper people at the table with the expertise to do the work. Councilmember Iyer.
Just, I think this is a good step in the right direction. I think it's a normal process for a city to establish needs and org charts that define those employee needs as projected by directors and staff. You know, those needs do change, and I recognize that, but I think it's a norm from my perspective that a department would define positions at a set level in accordance with their need. And, you know, there can be times where it's challenging that we would like to have a greater need to give opportunity to folks that have demonstrated, you know, excellence in service, which is admirable. But if the need doesn't change in a city, it's not appropriate to invent or find a space where if the need hasn't changed. And not to say that the needs don't change and it might not need to be changed, but there's a process involved for that growth to occur, that if there's a need, the need needs to come first before the opportunity. And if there is a need, then there can be an opportunity. But unfortunately, in the public sector, we are constrained by the need, and the need is a quantifiable thing, and it's a norm in city government to define the employment, the number of employees, the type of employees that you need, and that's a given for the budget, and then if that expands or grows or changes, then that represents a change in the budget. And that's what we're looking to see here. And from my understanding, my experience, that's a norm. And I don't think, I'm not afraid to think operating with a fear of the unknown. I think this is a quantifiable change that we can understand. And if unforeseeable pitfalls occur, when we can change it, the sky is not falling. So that may yield.
So is it time to call the question?
Yes, I would be happy to call the question. All those in favor? Yes. All those in favor, Jody will go from Jody down to the end and finish with Councilmember Neplin on the phone.
Councilmember McHenry.
Aye.
Councilmember Brudnicki.
Nay.
Councilmember Remington.
Aye.
Councilmember Hoag.
Aye.
Councilmember Langle.
Aye.
Councilmember Iyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Nackland.
Aye.
Was that affirmative aye?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Sorry, I forgot that part.
Moving on to Agenda Bill 20-02, Agreement Extension, Dewell Foundation for the Arts, formerly Agenda Bill 19-80 for discussion and or decision. Ms. Thomas.
Good evening again, Mayor, Council, and members of the community. This evening we have before us the third version of the grant extension for DFA for their facility. We have made some changes to this document since the version, I believe, in December. A couple of the items were requested by DFA, and that's in section 4. So we made those changes, and then section 5 was added based on previous discussion with our Finance Administration Committee. They had requested progress reports and wanted to better define what those would look like over the 2 years and what their expectations were of the Community Development Director to bring those forward to Council. So I actually drafted those based on feedback from the committee, but I do understand that DFA would like some time to review that, and so I think that's a good idea. But if you have any questions this evening on the way it's drafted, I can certainly can certainly take those.
Councilmember Iyer.
It sounds like a good idea to hold off on a lot of time too, so I would support that. Pause.
Thank you, Councilmember Iyer. Councilmember Lingle.
I just think that since the permit needs to be extended, I would ask that those comments be finalized so that we can vote at the very next meeting. I don't think it's a good idea to have this delayed. You need to get that extension. So that's my my input on that we vote at the next meeting.
Are there any other questions by council?
Councilmember Rudnicki.
Just a comment. This group has been really active in our community, so by assisting them to help them get through that process, I'm in favor of that.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to the last item on the agenda. Agenda Bill 20-03, authorize the mayor to direct staff to move forward with the advertisement for quotes for the depot building concrete deck installation project, formerly AB 19-100, for discussion and/or decision. Mr. Lenishevsky.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, citizens, staff, Steve Lenishevsky, Public Works. So there was quite a lengthy bit of paperwork in the budget, or I'm sorry, in the council packet on the depot deck. After the last meeting, some of the items that were requested to be reviewed included, excuse me, just kind of reconfirming the cost of the traditional stick frame with composite decking versus the concrete installed deck. Verifying what the scope of work and cost change might be to provide two separate documents, two bids, so we can have a apples to apples bid on concrete decking, as well as the stick frame. Reviewing the items that were in the recent home inspection services reports. Confirming the average annual rent. The last 4 years, it was around $5,100 annually. Going over some very elementary return on investments. So what was not considered was power, water consumption, those other types of ongoing utility expenses and operating expenses. And then there was no forecasting of painting over a 20-year term, siding over a 20-year term. So it's basically, what does this debt cost versus when might we get paid back based on average rent. Funding, verifying funding and eligibility of accounts. So the city has many funds. For the most part, they all have specific requirements of what monies can and cannot be spent on certain types of activities. This project is on our capital project list. This project is not included in the Parks Impact Fee calculation methodology. So the $600,000 renovate depot building and add restrooms, meeting rooms, and concessions, install low-level lighting and parking areas was the term that was pulled out of the math from the last go-around for park impact fee calculations. So you can use general fund dollars, you can use REIT dollars, which are capital dollars, and then any other non-tied funds you may have available. So no utility fund and no parks impact fee fund and no traffic fund. We did come up with some alternative costs, trimming down the pathway onto the deck from the concrete trail, and then narrowing down on the building's west side on the north section as much deck as possible near the second door threshold. So there were some square footage reductions. The one comment from the gentleman earlier, stairs in and out of the building do not comply with the ADA route of travel access. So currently it's compliant to the threshold. It's not necessarily a compliant building, but it is, as best as it was compliant to get you in until the board started cupping and you come up with vertical deviations on the way in. So With that said, the numbers we were able to confirm, if we're interested in getting a second set of plans together, were provided here, and I'm trying to scroll to them, I apologize here. It's a big packet. And it's just kind of glitching with the info. No, I was going over Andy's. So to put the separate plan set together, so we have a contract to develop a set of plans. To get another set of plans developed, to bid them both and see which costs we're more comfortable with, if we go that route, was $11,700. Part of the reason why I said our money is best well spent by going forward with a design as bid is that is another significant amount of resource to invest. I did qualify today, the original contract we have, if we switch our design thoughts, there might be some cost incurred, but certainly not $11,700 if we want to change to more of a stick frame composite decking surface. And I say that because there's another significant amount of money we're going to spend on an alternate that may or not be warranted, because if you're going to spend $100,000 repairing it and you're going to spend another $10,000 plus on a design, you've just lost 10% again. So I know everybody's sensitive to cost, we're sensitive to cost. You know, the benefit of stick frame, it is more flexible over time. If something happens, changes, needs to change, you have the option. I get the concrete element, but the amount of money the city normally invests in operations and maintenance of our structures is very de minimis on an annual basis. So my opinion is the concrete one will be the easiest to maintain, the longest lasting, right? The most minimum out of pocket annually. That may not be the most flexible. So that's why it's in there as proposed. Staff, we went over it, and one design has got to be good enough for us. That design is the most cost-effective return, but it's at least flexible. So I'm not stuck on anything, but I do believe, after talking briefly in the committee of the whole, we can go round and round on everything that we do. So if we want to attack the inside first before we get someone into the building, that's an option. If we want to get someone into the building before we upgrade the inside, that's an option. So we do need to pick a route. I think we're all confident we're going to have this building in some way, shape, or form. And the longer we do nothing, the longer we get the revenue, the longer nobody gets to use it, and the less opportunity we have for our community to find a place to be. I think I concluded that, and we'll go around with questions, comments, thoughts, and see how we can move out on this.
Councilmember Hogue.
I do have a question. In the Cal meeting, you had this slide and it talked about the siding being protected. Has that been done, or is that still something that you plan to do?
Yeah. So you can see, if you can see on the board here, siding is here. The threshold at where the deck level would be is consistent with that wood trim right there. That is further coverage that is not permanently sealed. So how it gets permanently sealed is dependent on what type of decking we apply. So if we apply stick frame and then composite decking, that gets more of a solid sheet treatment over it. If it becomes part of a concrete system, backfill concrete, the flashing is just different, and then what goes over the building's exposure is different. So I didn't want to spend any money on something that might come out depending on which way we go, because they're both different. I can't have one type to meet both those standards. Good question.
So, when we did Main Street, first part, that was a huge commitment for us. And today we wouldn't argue that that was a great investment. This piece, when I think about it, is down there at Depot Park, and we have to live with it. We can't do anything else with that. And we have made a huge investment in the park itself, through the concrete, through the art pieces, through other things. So I think I look at this and think about the fact that keeping with that whole park down there and what we've invested already, and staying in line with that, that we have no alternative but to improve that building, because we can't get rid of it. So I'm really wanting us to move forward. I guess my question is, if we put a deck on to make then the building operable and safe to the public, how much do you think we might have to start looking at altering or changing or fixing in that building?
So the inside has operated in that state for quite a while. There's always been cracks in the floor, there's been bubbles going on here and there. There are obviously things identified. I did forward the report to an electrician. They are working to get out here to take a look. Part of the concern was maybe not understanding the termination point and where the service comes from. We're fairly confident it does come from the police station. So we know that system was installed in 2004 to get it from the station down to there. Whether that's code or not now, I don't know whether it was code or not then. I don't know, someone did it and did it, so I'm going to imagine it was probably okay. It is a very low draw building. I mean, it's probably 2 or 3 parts of a sub panel. I mean, our dishwashers at home probably use more energy than that. So it's not that it's not a concern. We will look into it. But again, the chimney bothers me because that's kind of a dying art on folks who do that kind of work. So it's fairly specialized because there is a chimney threshold that is leaking. So I don't know if a regular roofer can do that or it's going to be some sort of chimney mason. The flooring is just how much do you fix? Do you just fix it on one and leave it? Or do you put something different down? And then when you start to pull and peel, we all know how that goes. If you've had family or whatever in a home that was built in 1905, we've all seen what's behind walls and floors and everything else. So I completely understand the concern. I do think there's plenty that can be done fairly cost effectively to get the building tidied up inside and certainly operable. Hopefully under a few $1,000s on the inside. The roof again might be a little, and then electrical is a crapshoot. Hopefully it could be nothing but somebody confirming it's all good to go. Let's hope there isn't any knob and tube. I didn't see any knob and tube in that report. I did see knob and tube in the visitor center in the other report, but I didn't see any of that active in there. The windows are fairly specialized, and we did repair windows to the Dory Farm a handful of years ago. And Alana told me how much, and it was between $1,000 and $2,000 per, because you have to take them apart, put them back together. They have weights inside, and there's little pulleys and whatnot. So they can be fairly hands-on in how they are renovated. But I do really wonder, it said 1 or 2 of those was needing some work. They're not operable, and there are other windows that work, so it isn't imperative, but again, there are some things to get done. And this is one of those items too that we talked about, trim work, anything that's not specifically detailed or electrical. We have some talents in-house. We are stretched a little. We're still down a staff member based through attrition. We are doing meters on the weekends in a rotating fashion with 2 crew, and right now have 7. We are interviewing for the 8th as a replacement, but things are just busy. So we do want to get work on a work plan. Part of the work planning too from the PMs is getting roof quotes for the buildings and other stuff going on. So there's plenty of work to get done citywide, and we'll try to do as many items as we can at once. Little opportunities for some scale.
It
Wasn't a
just,
great answer, but under 5.
okay, well, it brings me back to the memory of Main Street where we were at a point where we had to do something.
I don't think we had all the money for that when we went for it.
We didn't have, no, we didn't, but we had to do, something had to be done, and we're in that same situation, way more downscale for sure.
Councilmember Lingle.
When I looked at the inspection report, the things that really struck me on the electrical was it looked like we had enough power and so forth. The thing that really caught my attention was aluminum wiring. Aluminum wiring is a known fire hazard, and it really depends on when it was installed. So, we may have enough power, the service might be fine. That's kind of like an electrician looking, but I think the issue there really is what's the deal with the wiring, and he called out aluminum wiring. And then the other thing that in terms of keeping the building just generic, basically tight, has to do with the bedding and the roofing. Because if your roof is not, if that stuff isn't bedded right, you're going to have more risk on your roofing. And, you know, there was stuff like clean the roof, clean the gutters, I mean, those are basic things, right? Those are not life-threatening. And, you know, there's cosmetic work, let's face it, inside to get it into a more rentable or pleasant rentable. And it seems like some of that might be able to even occur over time, but we just need to get a handle on what all that might be price-wise. In terms of the deck itself, what your memo showed on the return on investment, I noticed there was a little bit of a difference in the numbers in the staffing memo, and I wasn't quite sure what those were. But, so I'm just going to focus on the return on investment numbers that you put in your cover memo, and then please correct me if I'm not getting the amount of money correct compared to the briefing memo, your staff memo, okay? So what this says is a reduced size concrete deck is $75,000 is the number, and then a reduced size basic composition is $70,000. So, you know, $5,000 one way or the other. So my feedback is going with a reduced size deck. And the second thing is, I personally would prefer if we just picked a type of deck. I think from a time efficiency, get it done, move on, it's just better to pick one, concrete or composition. And we're not going to go wrong either way. It's just a question of if it's reduced size and these numbers are targets, we're looking at $5,000 one way or the other. In the scheme of all of this, you know, it's a lot better than a $100,000 concrete deck, right? So it's moving in the right direction. So I don't know if other people have a, you know, deep, heartfelt feeling of concrete versus composition, but my main thing would be I think we have to go with the reduced size deck. The reason for that is we don't know what other requirements are going to be of this building, but as we talked about in the COW, we have other facilities that need work, and we have a limited amount of money to do our facility work, and then there's, you know, construction management, all the other things you've got going on. So for cost containment purposes, I think we have to go with the reduced size deck and move on with this, clean it up as best we can, make sure it is safe, and move on to the next facility. We have 2 other facilities that need to be addressed.
Anyone else? Council, or Mayor Pro Tem Remick.
Steve, we have a list in here, different parts of the budget the money can come from. How are those budgets doing? I mean, is the money in there to help pay for this? You know, whether we pick a $70,000 or $100,000. At the end of the day, I just want to make sure that we have the money to be able to make those necessary repairs. And part of that is also understanding it's not going to take away or necessarily impact something else that we need to do.
Well, the good news is we have a new finance director who can help reaffirm, but the REAP funds are tracking at or above revenue expectations, and we do not have any capital projects really programmed for those at the time being. Not that we don't have a lot of capital projects over the long haul to do, whether they're roadways, buildings, you know, non-utility based work. So there are ample resources today. We haven't put anything to paper on priorities over time, you know, but there's nothing else really budgeted for this budget cycle. So there's plenty relative to that. We have a little bit left over, like the number said in the agenda bill, from the work that we've started already, but certainly not enough to cover the balance. So we also have the opportunity to use the new park levy funds, which I think the city of Duval will be getting 116 over the annual cycle, and that was a 6-year levy. So that's a 6-year click of 116. And not that we've set any priorities for those resources either, because I know there's always plenty of things to do for parks. So we have some of that available for sure. And no parks impact fee eligibility on this.
Councilmember Iyer.
So we can use REAP for this?
It's on your capital programming list, so yes, you can use REAP.
As a,
One or two.
as a upgrade, not so much a maintenance.
It's on your, yes, you're putting a deck on the building that will expand its use and obviously replacing a deck, but it was programmed for some sort of work on the CIP, which I assume the definition on the list was fairly vague, and so it was depot renovations, so it's been disclosed to the, you know, the greater community on that capital item.
And I think that, I guess to clarify, to maybe apologize to the general public who's trudged through this conversation if they've been listening. I think most of the apprehension that I have is just about, you know, do we have this money to spend on this? And that's the biggest question for me, but it's, I mean, in terms of the reduced size, I think at this point, with where we're at, barring having another conversation about those additional funds coming in and how we use those, I think that's almost a whole other conversation, but right now, where we're sitting at, not really considering those, I think it's reasonable to just proceed with try to see what we can do with the reduced size deck, and move on.
And to be fair to you folks too, you know, we've done it in these 3 stages, you know, demo, take a look, you know, and go as we have in the 3 stages here. We could have found other things along the way where we could have had changes anyway, but we have found mostly beneficial items for moving forward. So, you know, slow and steady, we'll win the race here. It's just time. And I know we've had, you know, folks are interested and excited to get back into there, so getting it done is a good thing, but reduced footprint, obviously understand, you know, materials type, you know, I'm not really sold on one or the other. I do like the flexibility of stick frame. I do like the long-term maintenance issues or non-issues of the concrete, so I'm probably not doing a good job as your director of public works on that end because you're not going to be wrong either way. So.
Councilmember McHenry.
I mean, I feel like we've really been through it and from every angle on this. You were really good, but you know, I was really stuck on, you know, can we get in from the other side of the building? You know, we've been through all of that, so I feel pretty comfortable that, I mean, we're just at this point where we need to make a decision. Did you say that, so I know what you were talking about, getting another design, that was only if we wanted to do a different kind of material, so with the reduced footprint, is that easy to go out to bid for both and just say we're doing one or the other, we're not sure which, or do you just want us to pick one?
So no, the contract as is for a design to take to bid. What we talked about at the last meeting was, hey, if we wanted to bid concrete as we kind of contracted versus stick frame and get a plan set put together for stick frame and composite decking, that's another act by the architect. So that is where it's an additional $12,000 for 2 quotes to go out and pick one, right? So I just don't think we need that. I don't think there's a lot of value. We might save that much in one bid versus the other, but then you just lose it because you spent it on, you know, your architecture design costs.
But as it stands right now, we have a design for the original concrete plus a reduced deck size concrete. Can we take both of those out for bid, or do you
We
just...
don't have full design. We have
Oh, I
a
see.
preliminary design, all this with some basic costs.
Okay.
There's not a plan set put together.
Okay.
The overall footprint, the overall element that is going to set up the next step is, you know, final details is done. But, you know, putting the final details together now in specs, materials type for backfill, all that, it's got to go and get put together. So that's where the next, you know, month will get put together so we can make it a bid.
And then my last question, I mean, where we're at now in January, the sooner we go out to bid, is that the better? Because the closer we get to summer, it can potentially get more expensive,
Yeah,
right?
this isn't road-based work where you have to be weather pending. It's fairly non-weather sensitive. So it's small enough, even if it's raining, you can pour concrete in the rain if it's small. You know, you can bring the little tents out and whatnot and plastic covering stuff.
Okay.
Councilmember Arrington.
Steve, can you pull up a picture and just confirm with us what the reduced size deck looks like? It sounds like folks are leaning that way. I just want to make sure that I'm confirming in my own mind exactly what that is. And because we wouldn't have a deck over a portion of that, something has to be done, and we're probably not going to leave all that exposed. So we're going to spend money. You know,
Sure.
We're just trying to get
A little bit of landscape money on soil and grass. whether it's sod or seed, you'd probably put sod down there. It's go quicker. But so this on the screen is your full replacement footprint. So the kind of shady green, and we trimmed down the access way in, still making it, of course, rolling grade and ADA compliant, and then removing this corner. There's a door threshold right in this vicinity, so you have a door here and the other door right here. So both doors are still served. It just saves some of that cost per square foot on that corner.
Thank you.
Hey,
Councilmember Iyer.
concrete. Reduced size concrete, that's
So I would like to weigh in a little bit here. A year ago, almost a year ago, we had a head nod on the larger concrete deck, and that was pulled back at the next council meeting. And we have organizations, in fact, one sitting in this room, that utilizes that deck size, and I worry that for our public benefit and the historical use of that building, that shrinking that deck size is going to do a disservice to our community and the public that utilizes that building. We have festivals that go on that utilize that entire space for their setup, staging, etc. And reducing that space could have an impact on the organizations that use it and make it less usable for them. I recognize and understand the cost. However, as Mr. Laniszewski mentioned, there are other sources for money as well. And making sure that we have consistency with this building and making sure it's long-lasting and able to support the community over the long term. For me personally, as mayor, as an elected official, and as a community member, is really important. Councilmember McHenry.
Could you, I'm sorry, I'm trying to look at these plans. Could you let us know, if you know off the top of your head, what the actual square footage difference is? Maybe even just on the main pad in the back between the reduced site and the, because I don't really count the ramp. I know they get used a little bit.
One way or the other, the minimized width of the ramp is, in my opinion, okay. Everybody has their own opinion, mayor included. So the distance on the west side and the north end, it's about 7 feet from the door threshold edge to the corner of the building where the deck is now. So it's 7 foot shorter, and then of course whatever the width was, and I believe the width was 12 feet off the face of the building. So 96 square feet.
Okay.
7 times more.
Well, I guess I'd be leaning more towards the composite just because it gives you more adaptability in the future, but, it doesn't matter to me either way. It's $5,000 if your numbers are right.
At this point, I'm looking to reduce the amount of money we spend on this as much as possible, because we haven't spelled out exactly where these funds are coming from, and I think that's fiscally responsible to do whatever kind of deck the director, the engineer, the city engineer thinks is a good idea, then that's great. If it comes in here where the numbers you've indicated on your plans, I'm really just trying to facilitate giving some sort of, so we can move beyond this and get over this and do something, or, come to the point where we decide we don't have money for it and not do anything. But it seems as though there's money for it. Whatever.
It stood where it originally was for 90 years or whatever, so
Yeah.
I'm sure concrete would be plenty well valued by it.
Okay, so we're doing a concrete, smaller deck? Is that what I'm hearing?
Councilmember Hope.
Yes.
Councilmember Verdnicki.
So exactly how many feet from the wall out to the edge of that deck is that space?
About 96. From the door threshold to the edge of the building was 7 feet. So we're shortening it by 7 feet along the face of the building and then by the length of the deck itself, which was 12. So that's 96 square feet.
So there's enough room on that deck for people to move around?
It's not as big as it was, but it's direction from council.
Okay.
All right, any further discussion? It sounds like council has consensus. All right, Steve,
Want to have a formal motion or?
yes, so I'll entertain a formal motion for the option council prefers.
I make a motion that it's the concrete, reduced size deck.
Second.
Any further? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
You're right, you have to do a roll call. Sorry, Councilmember Natlin. So we'll do it the same way we did last time. Start it down at the clerk's end and move, and the phone will be the last vote.
Councilmember McHenry.
Aye.
Councilmember Brudnicki.
Aye.
Councilmember Remington.
Aye.
Councilmember Hoag.
Aye.
Councilmember Langhoff.
Aye.
Councilmember Iyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Nafland.
Aye.
7 ayes, the motion passes.
All right,
Thank you all.
and with no further business, we are adjourned.